Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the Hindenburg disaster of Lakehurst, New Jersey in May of 1937. I have seen it described as the Titanic of the skies. Well, I must tell you, the similarity between the two is very distant. I must tell you, the Hindenburg was a very successful ship. The Hindenburg sailed for an entire year with no problems whatsoever and nothing but acclaim and wonderful comments. Very different from the Titanic. The Titanic didn't even make one voyage. But the Hindenburg was the most magnificent flying machine ever designed, and it has yet to be equaled. Another thing about the Hindenburg, it was a well-designed ship. It had all of the amenities. It had all the safety features. But the one thing, very much like the Titanic, that the Hindenburg was not immune to was human error. And that was the Achilles heel of not only the Hindenburg, but the Titanic as well. Because in both cases, the destruction of the Hindenburg and the destruction of the Titanic was due to human error. Now, with the Hindenburg, one has to remember that her predecessor, who was still sailing at the time of the disaster, was the Graf Zeppelin. This was all the great dream of Hugo Echner. And Hugo Echner basically created the Zeppelin Company as it was known in the 1930s. The Graf Zeppelin, which came out in 1929, sailed for 8 years without mishap. The Zeppelin Company had been carrying passengers for many, many years without one fatality. Now compare that to airplanes of the time, and you'll see a marked discrepancy. Hugo Echner was a very disciplined, very controlling, and very, very organized individual when it came to operating airships. He was very opinionated and was very much hated by the Third Reich, and even more hated by Adolf Hitler. Hugo Echner took the first flight of the Hindenburg, which was a flawless flight. He had taken the previous ship, the Graf Zeppelin, all around the world. He went in Arctic exhibitions. He went here, there, and everywhere else to raise awareness of the feasibility of Zeppelins crossing the globe, and it was so successful. The Graf Zeppelin carried thousands of passengers in its lifetime, and the Hindenburg had carried thousands of passengers in its year-long lifetime. What happened then to the Hindenburg? Hugo Echner was very upset about how things were handled on that awful day in May of 1937. Max Pruss was the captain, an ardent Nazi who was very keen to always make his Führer happy. Now, one has to remember that the Hindenburg had made its voyage across the Atlantic and was held up because of bad weather, thunder and lightning storms, and spent the day flying over New York City and going across the shore and everything else. And finally, late in the evening, they finally tried to make a landing. The skies were troublesome. There was thunder and lightning activity in the area. Now, in the rule book of Zeppelin operation, as Hugo Echner pointed out after the disaster, Number one, you never land a Zeppelin during any kind of electrical activity in the air. Because what do you have to do to land? You have to vent gas. Hydrogen gas. Also, Max Pross got reckless because he was worried that they were going to be behind schedule and they had to take off soon to get to the coronation of the King of England. And so he rushed things. And he made a turn with the Hindenburg that the ship was not designed to handle. Made an abrupt, sharp turn. And suddenly the back end of the ship got heavy. By making such a sharp turn, it is believed that several struts snapped because they were pushed beyond their limit, because that's not how to fly the ship. By snapping these, very good chance they ruptured one of the hydrogen bags. Then they dropped the cable to the ground and connected the circuit. And whammo, off it went. All it needed was a spark. And down it went. Hugo Echner absolutely went insane after this because he stated that so many safety rules had been bypassed. This is the problem. And in a sense, this is the same problem with the Titanic. So many safety rules were bypassed by the crew, by the captain. Now, it did not help matters that the dope that was used on the outside of the Hindenburg was extremely flammable. And what I mean by that is the paint that they covered the outside canvas of the ship with. It was a metallic canvas, and the paint was amazingly flammable. And of course, the Hindenburg crashed. Incidentally, more people survived than were lost. But it became the 800-pound gorilla in the room politically. No one was pretty happy about the Third Reich. No one was pretty happy about letting Germany use helium because Germany was using hydrogen. And they were asking to use helium, and we refused to sell it to them. The Hindenburg crashed, and it was the end of lighter-than-air craft transportation. It's truly a pity, because had the Hindenburg and the Hindenburg's sister, which was just about ready to sail, which was called the Graf Zeppelin II, which was identical to the Hindenburg with a few additions, transatlantic travel on the Zeppelins would have taken a whole new chapter. But due to rushing, due to bypassing safety measures in order to please the government, the Hindenburg was lost. And so was all the dreams of Hugo Echner and those that were very fond of lighter-than-air transportation. Thank you.